Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We have another full house at the Field House. I've gotten fond of that alliteration this week. I hope you're all well fed and ready for a lively conversation here at Atlantic headquarters. That's actually the last time I'll be able to say Atlantic Convention headquarters in at least 4 years. I am Margaret Lo Smith. I'm president of Atlantic Live. Tonight, the curtains close on the Democratic Convention, and we're concluding our convention programming with this session, Pathways to Power, an Atlantic Forum on Women in Politics. I want to first thank the three organizations who've made this gathering possible, our underwriters, and they are All In Together, Running Start, and She Should Run. Thank you to all three of those organizations, and no doubt there will be plenty to tweet about at this conversation, so our hashtag is the Atlantic DNC. It actually feels apt to have a conversation about women in politics now. For the first time in history, a woman will formally accept the nomination as a major party candidate for the President of the United States. On the convention floor, we've seen people holding up signs that say, "A woman's place is in the White House." So it is a moment. And yet, women who make up half the population make up just 20% of the House and the Senate, and it's a similar story at state legislatures across the country. So there is a clear gap in the numbers. So we have lots to talk about, and we're going to start today with a lineup of women who actually do see a place for themselves in the halls of power. So please welcome Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She is her first term in the House. Welcome, Congresswoman. So is Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. She is also from Michigan. Welcome, Congresswoman. And Muriel Bowser is the mayor of Washington, D.C. Home of the Atlantic. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. And now, to lead the conversation, my wonderful colleague, politics writer Molly Ball.
Yay, Molly! Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thanks for being here. As Margaret said, this historic milestone happening tonight, first major party female presidential nominee accepting the nomination. And so I'd just like to hear from you as women in politics, your personal reactions to that, starting with you, Congresswoman Lawrence.
Last night, when I saw Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on that stage together, I can tell you it was a defining moment for me in politics in my life. It was emotional because here I am, an African-American woman, and seeing my country, the United States, break two barriers. And you know, when you do the Washington tour and you get the book with all the presidents, you know, I was so proud when you finally had some color in there, finally. Well, now I'm gonna have a woman after all those men, so it's extremely defining. Please do not lose the focus that this is history being made.
Mayor Bowser, when we were just in the green room, a 13-year-old girl came up to you. Do you get that a lot? Is this about having new role models for young women?
I do get it a lot, and I have to tell you, I was surprised by it. I ran 3 times on our city council, and I ran for mayor in 2014 and was elected last year. And in my campaign for mayor, I realized that the 8-year-olds especially are watching. Anytime I would come across an 8-year-old little girl, and the boys too, but the girls especially, they knew who I was, they were excited about me running, and I knew it was because I was going to be a girl mayor and they were girls too. And so I know that it means a lot to little girls to know that there will be a woman in the White House, because for them, they can't understand why it hasn't been a girl president.
Yes.
And this changes all of that, their perception.
Well, how about that, Congresswoman Dingell? Have things changed in your lifetime? Have you seen a change in how we look at women that has enabled this moment to take place?
You know, I actually am someone that is very strong on, I am not voting for Hillary Clinton because she is a woman. I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because she is the most qualified person for the job. And so I've been very, this isn't, I'm not going to be what I wasn't going to be. I was just going to keep moving because I think she's really going to be the strongest candidate. But Monday night, when the roll call vote occurred, and she actually got the number of votes needed, I found myself crying. And I actually cried when Bernie Sanders when he said it was going to be unanimous. And I thought to myself, many of you know that I worked at General Motors for 3 decades. When I interviewed for my job at General Motors, I was asked, why would a woman want to work at General Motors? And there's a club in Detroit, Brenda knows it, called the Detroit Athletic Club. And when I was young, women weren't allowed in the front door. And now the CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra, is a woman that I worked with for 3 decades. And a woman I've been a political spouse with, had her own career, is now the nominee to be President of the United States. And Michelle Obama summarized it well when she said, because of Hillary, our sons and daughters never have to think again about whether a woman could be president. And that's what I've truly been struck with by this week.
Congresswoman Lawrence, talk about your path into politics. What drove you to seek this as a career, and what, if any, what do you think your being a woman had to do with it, whether as an obstacle or as potentially a positive?
Well, every woman in this room, you have organizations, and what you do, you encourage women to run. I became involved in politics when I was a PTA mom, and I was the area PTA, and every time we wanted to do something, we had to go to that board and convince that board. And I was frustrated because the board didn't get it. I said, I want to be on that board, and it was an elected position. And I was so intimidated by that. I said, a politician, I can't do it. And it was a man who said, I said, I didn't have a doctorate, I've never been a teacher. He said, what we need are people who literally care. Mm-hmm. And if you really care about children being educated, you're the one that should have the job. And really starting from there, school board, city council, mayor for 14 years. And I echo what the mayor said. I can't tell you how many little girls will run up and said, you're a girl. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, and I'm a mayor. And they said, yeah. With a lot of sass and attitude. Mm-hmm. And then I was a lieutenant governor, and I was nominated by my party to run as a lieutenant governor candidate. And now I am a member of Congress. The first time we've ever had 100 women, the first in our history, 100 women serving in Congress. And so it's that wanting, that's this. And we're going to have a woman president. So it is about the compassion, and I find that women run not to have the title, not to have the prestige, but they literally want to make a difference. And we need more of that in our government today.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Bowser, do you think you have a different perspective or a different leadership style being a woman, especially being in an executive position as you are?
Well, I never... Like I said, this is my 4th election. I served almost 8 years as a legislator, and I never really ran with the idea in mind that I was a woman and I was different because I was a woman. Like the Congresswoman said, I do see a difference in that women will wait to run. Women will wait for the perfect issue, or they'll think that there is some perfect time down the line to come to run. When for me, I saw the need in my city for fresh and ethical leadership, and I knew that I could do it. So I stepped in to run for office. And so I think if there is a difference between the woman executive and the men, is that there is more of an idea of rolling up your sleeves and getting the work done and getting in the nitty-gritty and not being only interested in the headlines.
Well, Congresswoman Dingell, do you find, and you've been, as you said, in the private sector for a long time as well as now in politics, is it still hard for people to deal with having a woman boss, essentially?
I think we got to be very careful to not make overgeneralizations either. I think one of the observations I'm going to make as a woman is that women of I am not old, but I am seasoned. And that when I was younger, we were the first. And there would be, women didn't help each other. Women felt threatened. And if one person got ahead, they would feel like that was going to hurt them. And I have been saying this to women for years. The old boys network is alive and well. Boys understand supporting each other. Boys understand the importance of networking and being there. Women sometimes don't understand the importance of supporting each other. That when one does well, we all do well. And I think that that's something that's very important for us as women to recognize.
Well, you raise a really interesting question, which is, when you think about the old boys network, you think about maybe the smoke-filled rooms or the locker rooms that you're not allowed into. Is the solution to crack that network, or is the solution to make an old girls network that competes with it and maybe outdoes it? What do you think, Congresswoman Lawrence?
I was at a conference for women, and it was a very accomplished CEO. And her resume was just amazing. She was first in so many categories. And they were introducing her, and when she went to the podium, she said, you all are applauding my resume and the experience that I have, but let me tell you what I'm proud of. She said, Mary, would you stand up over there? She's a senior manager. And Susan over there, she is now the head secretary in her department. And Mary over there and Jane over there, she's in charge of procurement. She said, because when I leave this position, I'll have a whole army coming up to replace me. That's what is powerful about when you get into the positions of leadership, is that you understand. I mean, I walked down the halls of Congress during my orientation, and I saw the portrait of Shirley Chisholm just out of the corner of my eye, and I stopped and froze, and I said, I'm standing on your shoulders. If it were not for your courage, if it were not for because you can only imagine what she went through to go to Congress, a black woman in America at that time. And so I'm so conscious of my responsibility. I think almost all of us have been first. I was the first woman mayor of my city when I ran. And so it is incumbent to pull our shoulders back, stand tall, work. Sometimes that pressure is unfair, but I accept it because I know that so many people, especially when you're the first, they want to know if you don't do it well, they'll close that door right behind you.
Mayor Bowser, you talked about women waiting longer to run. Mm-hmm. How do we get more women into the political pipeline? Is it about them making the decision to lean in, as it were, and have the confidence? Is it about forming these networks and support structures? Is it both? What do you think?
Well, I love that Running Start and She Should Run are sponsoring this event, because I do think that we have to cultivate pipelines of women to run. You asked the Congresswoman, do we need our own organizations? Yes. Do we need to break into their organizations? Yes. We need to do both. And we just need to confront the things that we know from research that tell us why women don't run. Women want to have the perfect resume. The men don't ask themselves, do they have the perfect resume? They throw themselves out there. We know that women don't get into the fundraising aspects of campaigning. Now, I love being being the elected official, but I love campaigning. I love everything that goes into campaigning. So not only should we be on the front lines, knocking on the doors and mailing the mailers, but we should also be a part of the fundraising apparatus and do that. And we need to mentor, as we've heard here. I've been in office long enough to know that I have encouraged other women to run. I have supported other women. I helped 2 women get elected in Washington, D.C., and they may not have been able to get elected if it wasn't for my support. And so we can't be scared to do that. I lost one of them in this last election, and people say, oh, well, maybe, she's lost her touch with this. But the next election, I'm going to have another one. We'll find somebody to recruit somebody and get them to run.
I want to take a question or two from the audience, so think of some brilliant questions. But first, Congresswoman Dingell, you talked about emphasizing voting for Hillary Clinton because of her qualifications, not because of her gender. And we've heard a lot of rhetoric from certain people in this election about the so-called woman's card. How do you navigate that as a politician? Do you think it's an okay thing to emphasize? Do you think it's alienating?
I think we've got to talk about why she's qualified for the job. I guess I'm probably going to be really blunt here, but there are times that women have gotten into positions, and I don't see this as much anymore, but when I was younger, that weren't qualified for the job. And by the way, you do a disservice to every woman when you play the woman's card and you don't do a good job because you're talented and qualified for the job. And I don't want someone to think that I got a job because I was a woman. I want someone to think that I've got the job because I'm the best person for the job. I mean, I really feel very strongly about that. So I'm going to keep talking about, and she is the, can anybody here not think she's the best person for this job? She's the most qualified. President Obama said it last night. She is more qualified than he or Bill Clinton were to be president of these United States. I've known her for more than 3 decades. I met her when, I am not old, but I feel it lately. When she and I worked, political spouses didn't work. Oh, my Lord, we had a brain and we had a career. And we had to be careful, and you had to do it so that you didn't cause conflicts for your spouses. And we cared about issues. Not only were we working spouses, but Betty Bumpers, whose husband was from Arkansas, introduced us because I was chairing the Infant Mortality Commission in Michigan, and she cared about children's issues. And you know what? We rolled up our sleeves and we went out and got the job done. And when she lost the health care battle, but she never gave up, and we ultimately got health care, she went right back to work and got the children's health insurance program done. I've watched her do that. And she's been a United States Senator. She's been Secretary of State. She's a good lawyer. You tell me who else you've seen this qualified. And
right.
That's what we should talk about.
All right, if you have a question, raise your hand. A microphone will come to you. And please tell us who you are. Keep your question short and snappy.
Hi, I'm hoping I'm in a good place for this, but hi, my name is Dina Archuleta, and I'm actually running for mayor in the city of Albuquerque. First woman, we've never had a woman in Albuquerque, and we think it's time for a change. And I wanted to ask you, because when I first announced, there are 10 men who are talking about running against me. Interesting, right? But when I first announced, I had so many, both men and women, come to me and say, well, you should run for something else. And they'd always have another option for me to run for. And I said, I don't want to run for something else. I want to be the mayor of Albuquerque because I can make a change for my community. And that's my passion, and that's where I want to be. But my question is, why do you think it is that there's always, have the woman change to something else? Nobody's telling the guys they should run for something else.
Thank you for your question. And if I can rephrase that a little, when you accept advice from people, do you have to listen for that kind of perhaps implicit condescension? Perhaps.
Well, I think what's important is that you can articulate your plan to win. Right. And as long as you can explain, man, woman, as long as you can explain how you're going to win, then they will stop asking you to drop out. And so just be able to very quickly say, I'm running for mayor because this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to win.
And don't let yourself, I'm going to say something. The woman shouldn't let herself be the victim. And I tell guys, you know what? If you want to get here, this is how you do it too. Don't always think that they just say it. They have. There's no question that women have been treated differently, but don't let yourself be made a victim. Muriel was absolutely right about show them why you're the right candidate.
When you go into politics, women, we're doing a better job, but we're raised to put ourselves in a position where we're never publicly criticized. The thing that I will tell any woman going into politics, you are going to have to grow a thick skin because they're going to, I mean, look at what Hillary Clinton has gone through. No one's talking about Donald Trump's hair, but they talk about her pants. Really? But you will get that. And if you allow that emotional part of us to get sidetracked, you will be attacked, you will be criticized, and there are people who deliberately do that because they want to get you off track. So all of your brilliance, all of your skill is suppressed by this emotional reaction. We train women that when you are in debates, there are strategic people that try to find that button and make you start screaming or get emotional. They say, see, she's not qualified. And so it is important that you understand when someone, they're going to be expected, plan for it. Have someone tell you, you know, you're a little overweight. Have someone tell you, you know, you didn't get a doctorate and the men have a doctorate. Well, you know, you have to feel that pain so when you get out there in public, you can say, yes, you know what my qualifications are. I can't speak for him, but I have this, and that. This is what this community, and I'm going to bring that. I need your vote. I want you to seriously consider my resume. Can I sit down and talk to you? Can I send you an email? Because come election day, I want your vote because I'm going to win, and I'm going to take care of you when I win. That's what you need to do.
That is a great note to end on. Thank you so much. And back to you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly and all. I saw that we had a lot of questions, and we're going to have time for questions throughout the morning. Next up, some perspective from our underwriters, who we've talked about already today. We've got quite a crew. It's my pleasure to welcome Laura Leader-Chevet. She is co-founder and CEO of All In Together. Lauren. Susanna Welford is the founder and president of Running Start. Erin Lo Scutaro is co-founder and CEO of She Should Run. Sylvia Aldana is the manager of federal affairs for Pacific Gas and Electric. All right, I've got the longest bio coming up. Christian Harold is in the middle school halls of power. She was elected to the student council at the Potomac School.
Yay, Christian.
She's from the Potomac School in McLean, Virginia, and she is gearing up for a re-election campaign this fall. Sally Sussman is the executive vice president for corporate affairs at Pfizer. And here to lead the conversation, please welcome Laura Cox Kaplan. She's PwC's principal in charge of U.S. government regulatory affairs and public policy. Take it away, Laura.
Great, thanks, Margaret. Hi, everybody. Wow, you guys look at this crowd. It's amazing. We are so thrilled to be here. I am really thrilled to have an opportunity to kick off this amazing panel. We like to call ourselves problem solvers because we are all well aware of what the challenges are in terms of closing the gender gap. But what we want to spend time talking about today are creative ways that the nonprofit and the public sector and the private sector can all partner together to come up with creative solutions. So I'm really, really happy to be here with these amazing leaders today. So my firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, several years ago, I took a look at our political engagement strategy. And I thought, how could we have more of an impact in terms of looking for ways to support women? We have a very strong, diverse, and a very strong policy related to diversity and inclusion. But what we had not looked at, we're looking at more creative ways for using our resources to help promote getting more women elected. So I talked to a number of folks. I talked to members of Congress, I talked to academics, I talked to some of the amazing women on this panel, and put together essentially a refined political engagement strategy to do just that. And we did several very specific tactical things. We set aside money out of our political engagement and our PAC budget specifically for women, and spent that money earlier in the cycle in order to really help in those cases where women sometimes have a bigger difficulty in primaries. So giving that money earlier, talking about the fact that we were doing some of these things differently and trying to set an example for others to think creatively. And lastly, coming up with some innovative partnerships including partnerships with the women on this panel. So that leads us to what we really want to talk about today. And I want to start with a question specifically to Lauren, Susanna, and Aaron. And I'd love it if you'd tell the audience about the specific ways that your organizations, how they're different, and which aspect of this problem you are each trying to solve.
Should I start? Okay.
Yes, go for it.
So I'm Lauren Leader-Chivet from All In Together, and I'm here with my amazing co-founders, Courtney Emerson and Etta Collins-Coleman. And yay. So I just want to say a couple things about what we have in common and what's so important about this moment and what we're doing together. And I'm going to say it now because there are a lot of women in the room who are parts of lots of extraordinary women's organizations who've been spending their entire lives, their entire careers, advancing women, including my mom. When we all, as this sort of younger generation, started to take on this challenge, we wanted to learn and do it maybe a little differently. And one thing that's unique about us, or maybe hopefully soon to be less unique, is that we are all nonpartisan women's political organizations. And the reason why we are is because if you believe in the power and importance of amplifying women's voices in our country, you have to believe that, whether you agree with those women or not. We have to believe that, whether we agree with them or not. And I know, here in Philly with my, Democratic sisters and brothers, it's very tempting to focus exclusively on our side of the aisle. I think there is extraordinary leadership happening all over, and, I want to also acknowledge Laura, who has become one of my dearest and closest Republican friends. But
I am the diversity candidate.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not going to go on too long, but to say that we have a lot to learn from each other. And what's extraordinary about women, part of why we want to see a woman in the White House, why we want to see women in elected office, why we want to see women advocating for policy and leading at every level, is because we work together, we find common ground solutions, and we put the country ahead of our egos. And that is true on both sides of the aisle. And we need more of that. So that's what we're doing it all in together.
Awesome. Susanna?
So I founded Running Start 10 years ago, and when I first started telling people about this idea to train high school and college women to run for political office, they thought I was crazy. And they really thought, wait, it's going to be 10 years till they can run for any meaningful office. But it wasn't a crazy idea. It's a great idea because now we've trained 10,000 young women from all over the country, and they're running for things, and they're winning, and they are forming this pipeline to power that hopefully means that in, I'll give them 20 years, we will really see parity in politics. And one of the things that we do is we train women. I'll tell you about one of them we trained this summer. She came from Oakland, California. Actually, PG&E gave us a grant so that we could bring several girls from Oakland. Flew her to DC. She spent a week with us doing political leadership training, which means we didn't just talk to her about politics, we talked to her and taught her concrete leadership skills, so that she felt confident in her abilities. And I'll tell you the other thing that we did that's really unique to this audience. I don't usually talk about this, but biggest thing we did, we introduced her to people like you guys in the room. And you come from Oakland and you come from a low-income background. You do not have access to the people in power. And so you all are the people who can help our students really get on that path.
That's great. Aaron?
Great. Yeah. Hi, I am Erin Lo Scutaro, co-founder and CEO of She Should Run. And what I love about this opportunity is that we're all part of the same movement, but kind of focus on different slices of work. And She Should Run is really about inspiring women and girls to see elected office as possible, because with over 500,000 elected seats across this country and women representing at best 20 to 25% of those offices, regardless of the level, we need to do a lot more work, right? We have a lot of work to do. And She Should Run's role in that is really about the cultural shift. So how can we focus on bringing new voices, new faces to the table of this cause? Some of you may have seen 2 weeks ago, we rolled out an incredible partnership with Barbie. We were so honored to work with Barbie on the first all-female ticket. President and Vice President Barbie. We have some of them in the back. And you know what we found with that, here's a brand that has 99% brand recognition, and with that we were able to reach girls all over the place to show them what's possible, including through play, all types of leadership, including the Oval Office, right? So our chief audience is really that woman who's not a political animal. She's a leader. She knows how to get it done, but she's not connecting the dots for what she can do in elected office. So join us in our impatience of this at sheshouldrun.org to work on the cultural shift work in this movement.
That's great. Okay, let's shift to my two colleagues on the panel who are representing the private sector, Sally and
Sylvia.
And talk to me a little bit about how your organizations are investing. I mean, we've seen nonprofit corporate partnerships that are solving some of society's most vexing challenges. But frankly, investment in the gender space and specifically in women's political engagement, while our three organizations have been very involved in this space, you don't see that as pervasive as what we would really like. So talk about how your organizations got involved in this and maybe give a couple of examples of some of the things that you're doing.
Great, thank you. Well, I think kind of to set the stage, what I like to share with everybody is a little bit about the company, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E. We're a California-based, 110-year-old gas and electric utility. We serve 48 of the 58 counties, roughly 1 in 20 Americans. Now, it's no secret that the state of California is one of the most ethnically diverse of any in our union. We have a long history of serving our customers, and we've been challenged, quite frankly, with the emerging demographics going back 2 or 3 decades to really come to understand our customers. Our grid infrastructure is embedded literally in the communities that we serve, overhead and underground, pipes and wires, if you will. So we understand, and I think that one can appreciate, that the economic vitality of our company is tied inextricably to the success of our communities. And so just by way of example, because I know we don't have a lot of time, I would like to talk a little bit about one of the organizations that we've been funding since the late 1990s. We had a woman, some of you may recognize the name, Maria Contreras-Sweet, come to us with the notion, she actually had a study that was commissioned by the California Endowment, and the notion that women of color, particularly Latinas, faced very unique dynamics and cultural challenges as they contemplated a bid for public office. The study called attention to the need for a leadership development initiative that would really foster a nurturing, safe environment for all these women to come together and share their experiences and gain the skills necessary to run for public office. Well, we jumped right in, and we have been partners with them to this day. We are the single largest donor, and I'm very pleased and proud to say that we've turned out a U.S. Treasurer. We've turned out members of the California State Legislature, a couple that it was their first bid for public office ever, in very tough races, that one race that was won by 500 votes, and scores of local elected officials, both appointed and elected. I mean, it's a wonderful success story, and we're very proud to have been a part of that. We continue to this day. Again, because I know we don't have a lot of time, it would be remiss of me not to mention my 2 partners up here, Running Start and She Should Run. We have a tremendous partnership with both of these organizations, and what we're doing now is what I like to refer to as cross-pollination, where we're coming together and really bringing the various organizations that we support and asking them to work together. And most recently, we've funded in a very significant way She Should Run to come out west to the wild, wild west of California and look at all of the different women's organizations and do a very broad assessment of where more synergies can be built and where we might have some areas where we need to do some more work so that we can really leverage off of each other and really conduct a much broader outreach. And so that's just a couple of examples. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Sally, how about Pfizer?
Okay, on behalf of Pfizer, I just want to say how delighted we are to be here, honored to be part of the panel. I think it's important for companies to come to these public events, to be the private in private-public partnerships. There's so many reasons we've engaged on women's issues, and I'll mention just two. The first is for our employees. We have so many wonderful employees who want to see us take a stand, to lead, to be engaged, and it is for them. And then the other key reason is because women are usually the chief medical officer of their extended family. So they're taking the kids in for their well baby visit, they're taking their parents in when they need extra help. So talking and reaching women is very, very important to Pfizer. Just briefly, about a month ago, I was in Indonesia, in a slum in Jakarta, where people had almost nothing compared to some of the advantages we have. And we were able, with our local partners, to reach them by text, because they did have a mobile phone, to reach them by text when their babies needed vaccinations. So for us, women are key. And we're just so delighted to be here and honored to be on the panel.
That's great. Thank you, Sally. Thank you. You know, it can be difficult sometimes to show return on your investment when you're a public company, showing how the benefit of your investment is actually paying off. And I think we have a great example of return on investment here with Christian. Christian, you are our sole elected official here on the panel, and we are delighted to have you.
Thank you. And we're with her.
We would love to hear from you on why you decided to seek elected office. Oh, sorry, there's a bug. Just shoot it away. There you go.
I have. Grace under 5.
Why I decided to seek elected office?
Yeah.
Well, I love my school. I go to the Potomac School in McLean, Virginia. I've been going there since I was in kindergarten, and I just love it there. And when I came to 6th grade, there was this thing that they had called kids' councils. There were clubs you could do in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And so one of them was kids' council. I've been wanting to do this since about 4th grade. And so I joined the kids' council, and it was almost like a little program almost, to kind of get you ready for the real student government, which will be coming up the next year. So I did this on Kids Council. I had a great time. I got to connect with staff and administration, and I knew that next year that I wanted to run. So this past year in 7th grade, I ran as a representative from my homeroom, and I won. There were 3 people in the race, 2 of them boys. One of them won and became my partner as a representative. And then I also became the secretary of a committee that was dedicated to changing the school for the better. And I had an absolutely fantastic time. Secretaries do more than you think. And this year, I fully plan on running for re-election.
Yeah, that's great.
And unfortunately, I want to say this. On my student council, girls were heavily outnumbered to boys. And I don't know why. There were so many girls that ran. There were so many girls that gave so many great speeches. But in the end, overall, it was the boys who won. This year in my 7th grade history class, I learned about the Constitution and how the Constitution, they came together to create the Constitution, the Constitutional Convention. And men, unfortunately, it was all white men, but they came from all over to build what would become our country. And this idea, the diversity of people, creating the diversity of ideas to build something greater, is something that we still need to apply today. Unfortunately, we can't run on all white men today. We have to reach out and get people of all sorts of races and genders, all sorts of shapes and sizes, to come and build a more progressive United States. And in this election, that's what I see. I see Hillary Clinton stepping up to taking a role as the President of the United States as a woman to bring the diversity of ideas towards a new generation of the United States.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how much more evidence you need of the need to invest in this space than young Christian here. You're amazing, and we're so delighted to have you. We are unfortunately out of time. I would, on behalf of the panel, ask you to think about where you sit. if you sit on a budget and you have resources, think about ways in which you can carve out money specifically to focus on gender and focus on getting more women elected. Look at the network of people that are around you. Look at opportunities where you can use your skills, your resources, your assets in a way that can help to move the needle. We hope that this panel has inspired you and given you some things to think about, and we are so delighted to have been here with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. I think we all have a renewed sense of confidence about our future after that. To continue our conversation about women in politics and the pathways to power, please welcome 24-year-old Erin Schroeder, ran for Congress this year in California. Erin, you there? Sally Cohn is a columnist and a political commentator for CNN. Sally, welcome. And we're going to have some gender diversity up here on the panel. Virginia Congressman Don Byers started the Congressman Byers started the Men for Women Caucus on Capitol Hill, the goal to unleash the power of women to reach their economic potential. My colleague, Atlantic senior editor Alex Wagner, is here to lead the conversation. Alex.
Thank you, Margaret. There is so much arugula salad left over. Don't be shy. Go get it. You know you need it. But as soon as you're done getting the arugula salad, come back and join us. Thank you all, my esteemed August panel. Thank you for joining me. We have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time, so I'm going to get right to it. Sally, I'm going to go to you first because we're buddies and I can put you in tight spots.
And I like arugula.
And you love arugula.
Oh my gosh, I just want to note that I haven't been able to find a vegetable all week.
This is the spot. This is the
Apparently
spot.
it's because the Atlantic took all.
Yeah, we did.
The fucking
big run on
vegetables.
arugula on Tuesday. So, okay.
Yeah.
The Obama presidency has revealed.
He likes arugula too.
Yeah, he does actually.
Keep going. Sorry, Alex. Punchy.
The Obama presidency has revealed, I think, for a lot of Americans, racial fault lines that we didn't understand to be in existence. As we talk about potentially the first female president, do you think a Clinton administration would reveal the same fault lines for gender, and how worried should we be about that? What can we do to gird ourselves?
Okay, I want to say three things. First of all, backstage, I was complaining to Alex that I'm really tired because I got like negative 3 hours of sleep, and she's like, "It's okay, I'm tired too, so I won't ask you like deep questions."
Sorry, dude.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I forgot my second point, so my third point is I'll answer your damn question. No. You know, what I think makes this election, most important election, whatever, and it's hard with these sort of hyperbolic kind of tropes that we say these things, but then this time you're like, no, we really mean it. This one's really, really important. And there's this sort of existential tension that is playing out in this election. It is not actually, this election isn't the culmination of it. We're I think, seeing the beginning of this happening, or we're in the, maybe beginning of the second act. It's reflected back to in 1989 when Donald Trump said that if he had to do it all over again, he would rather be a, quote, educated black. Because in his mind, there are certain advantages to being a black man in America than a white man. And he believed this in 1989. Now, of course, according to any objective, measurable standard or statistic, it's just patently not true. But he believed it, and so did a number of people who were seeing the imperfect and incomplete, but still progressing, inching toward equality of men, of women, of people of color, and more so of gay folks and eventually trans folks. And we're seeing that not as a realization of all of our dreams, but in fact a deprivation of their own. That if women were going to be more equal, that meant men would have less. That if people of color were going to have more opportunity, that meant that white people would have less. And that, the germination of that, for which now political correctness is the sort of dog whistle code word, amped up when we elected our first black president, where half the country said, yes, this is great, this is a step in the right direction, and about half the country went, holy shit, what's happening to our
America.
Unearned power, right? And so a lot of people, just to finish saying, a lot of people say, oh my God, it's going to be horrible if Trump is president, and I believe it would be truly apocalyptic. It will, however, be awful if he loses too, insofar as you have a sizable part of the country who now realizes this is it. This is their last chance at winning a national election, demographically. They feel their political, economic, and very importantly, social power too declining. It's not their music anymore. It's not their, you're right? And they feel, combined with, by the way, a very real sense of economic displacement, which is real, and they are unimaginably and unacceptably angry and hostile about it. So yes, if a woman is elected president, will that be amped up? You bleeping believe it.
If that's what you say on sub 3 hours of sleep or -3, I am like the
well, with
democracy.
sleep, I could have said it faster.
No, so a very eloquent and thoughtful answer, my friend. Congressman, when we talk about women and women being in elected office, so often the conversation is had among women and for women. My question to you is, can men be feminists?
Oh, absolutely. I certainly hope so. We've sort of used the Nicholas Kristof model, who's spoken so eloquently about women's issues around. But it was great last night to see Joe Biden, Tim Kaine, and Barack Obama, and many other men making the strongest possible case. As my wonderful wife said, this is like the brothers standing up for the sisters.
Yeah.
Finally, I've always been impressed that the best men are the fathers of daughters who understand how important it is. I've got 3 wonderful girls.
Do you think that that's informed why you've taken such a strong stance on women in politics, having 3 daughters?
Oh, absolutely. 4 sisters, 3 daughters, and that wife.
You are
yes.
surrounded by women. Right. You live in an estrogen tent.
I do. And I'm so, yeah, very much. And it's wondering, I was doing the math this morning. We have 188 Democrats in Congress, and 62 of them are women, a full third. Now, it's not half yet, but it's a third. On the other hand, 247 Republicans and 22 women. If we had the same ratio, there'd be 60 more women in the House. Wow. And then we're so elect a lot of Democrats. Okay. We have 38 red to blue seats that Democrats are trying to take back from Republicans. Half of those 38 are women right now. So we're moving in the right direction.
Erin, as someone on the front lines, as a young woman who's run for elected office, this season of campaigning on the national level has been pretty ugly. A lot of the narrative around gender and some of the more misogynistic comments that you've heard. I mean, I wonder, as you and your peers talk about making another bid to be in elected office, how turned off has the rhetoric of how much has the rhetoric of this year, or how much do you think it will affect aspirations in the future, especially as it concerns young women?
I think that the rhetoric right now is soul-crushing. I mean, it's horrific, and our generation also lives in the digital sphere. It's inescapable. It's when I open my Twitter feed, my mentions, my Instagram, my YouTube comments, my email. That's not something additional. That's part and parcel to my day-to-day. So when I go out there and see somebody that says they're going to laugh with glee while they gang rape me, oh yeah, that really would encourage other young women to run for office.
Because I know you've been a victim of outrageous trolling on social media. How did you deal with that? I mean, when you open that, I don't even read my mentions at this point on Twitter, but I haven't gotten what you've gotten. I have not run for office, and I'm not running anytime soon, which is not to discourage anyone from running for office. But, I mean, how do you deal with that psychologically?
It was really disturbing. My personal cell phone, my personal email were put on chat rooms for these trolls to come attack me. And I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I am an eternal optimist. I tend to think the best of people. And just to see the way in which, and I'll name it, the way in which I think Trump has not come out against this hate speech, has fueled it further. And so many of the accounts that are just viciously attacking me by the thousands are also promoting his hate speech. So when we don't have the presidential nominee of a party just coming out and denouncing this again and again, it further fuels the fire. But I've chosen not to reply. I mean, you see a lot of people screenshotting it and putting it up, and Leslie J did that, and thank goodness she did, because it caused Twitter to respond and take action differently. But I've already seen one wave when I spoke out against it, and I don't need to incite that further, because there are also a lot of young women who follow me, and I take that responsibility pretty seriously.
Sally, what's the role of media in all of this, right? I mean, Donald Trump's Twitter feed gets a lot of attention. You and I both know that cable news follows it very, very closely. And sometimes there's a level of debate and analysis when he's tweeting out, say, a 6-pointed star, and there's a debate over what that actually is. But you know, once you make sort of a Twitter feed the centerpiece of campaign coverage, like there are implications there, right? It has a lot more power than it would have if we didn't make the social media feed a centerpiece of campaign coverage. What do you, like? So as you think about this, I mean, what's the role of media? Does this qualify as a hard question?
Let me start by saying I really love my job. Make sure everybody tweet that out, okay?
Yeah.
Please, right
well,
first.
and let me just say, I'm not cable news.
Oh, I'm not. No,
it's
no.
It's online print.
But I do want to just. I love my job a lot. All right. You know, there's a way in which, I could sort of go back and forth about this all day, about the sort of chicken-egg dynamic between the sort of salacious, gossip-driven, increasingly substanceless focus of our political media and media in general, and Donald Trump. So, you know, which created which? I don't know. I think it is a fascinating and fundamentally important conversation. But what I can say, if we take a sort of snapshot in time, is that you know, if we look at the last week and a half of coverage, you know, the plagiarism of Melania's speech, you know, Cruz not endorsing Trump, the email leaks, you know, the Bernie Sanders supporters, and right. Not that those aren't all significant and they're obviously news and they deserve to be covered, but that's all that gets covered. We cover, and I include myself in this, we cover the you know, sort of high school locker room gossip crap, and we aren't covering the substance. We aren't talking about, well, what would it look like? What would America look like under Donald Trump's immigration policy versus Hillary Clinton's immigration policy? What, you know, what would Donald Trump's tax policy mean to billionaires or millionaires like himself versus Hillary Clinton's economic policy? How, you know, do we make a college affordable? And it's interesting to me, and I get it, and it's right, but then he exploits it. So he knows that all he has to do is put a stupid thing out on Twitter or hold a rambling press conference where he just says outrageous things, and it's like catnip to the media. And
full stop.
We are literally. This is like we are through the looking glass. We are having a reality TV-based election where people, and I have talked to people who say, I don't like what Donald Trump stands for. I don't like his policies. I don't like this. But you know, we just need to screw the whole system. We need to throw out the whole thing. We need to write. And again, where is the media in saying, look what this would look like? Look at the implications of this. Look at what government, you can't, like if somebody is in charge of the military, Social Security, and they just kind of screw with it, look what this is going to mean to your life. We don't do that. We also have to say the media, and we were talking about this backstage, the media fuels, and we all fuel, and we all tweet, and this outrage-driven culture, right?
Yeah.
And then when you try to say, no, really, this is outrageous, people are like, you said that last Tuesday.
We've passed
about the
peak outrage.
Right. So I'm actually genuinely flummoxed. I don't know what we do.
Well, I think it probably makes the work of governing that much harder. When we're distracted by the catnip, we're not focused on actual policy and governance.
But there's another piece of the media, though, that I think is really interesting. When we were overseas, my wife Megan had 3 bilateral women's conferences, and at the third one, we invited Gina Davis over, who has this
humble
think tank.
brag.
Yeah, on women and girls in the media.
That's awesome.
No, it was very cool. She came over to talk about it. And one of the things that Gina said, and all the research showed, is that when what you saw in movies and television were nurses and teachers and secretaries, that's what young women decided to become. And when they simply started showing shows with women as forensic scientists, all of a sudden forensic science ballooned at the college level. So now we're going to have a woman president. And that's going to balloon women in politics and political leadership.
Can I just ask one question before we take a few questions from the audience? Do you think, what is the conversation among men in elected office in Virginia around women coming up in the ranks?
Well, in Northern Virginia, very positive. We have, women lead Fairfax County, Arlington County, Alexandria. Our mayor of Washington, D.C. is here, sheriff, school board. I mean, it's all women. So it's a very good thing, and that's who we keep electing.
So,
and I really
so it's a
think,
hushed conversation.
Politics in 20 years is going to look like our graduate schools look like today.
Wow, which are female dominated. Okay, with that, we have time for one or two questions. I think we have mics in the audience if you want to raise your hand right back here.
Oh, you'll hold the mic? Hi there, my name is Melissa Hames, and I am the judge of elections in my local Division 9, Ward 4 in Philadelphia. And thank you. And one of the things that I have found, and I'd be interested to hear from all of you, is I'm finding a general apathy towards politics in my very democratic city. When I try to find people to work with me during the elections every 6 months, I'm finding people are very apathetic. They have no interest. And how do we, as local, on our local level, get more people, and not even just women, people.
Anyone, warm bodies.
Anyone, exactly.
Probably warm bodies and more. Yeah. I'm going to let you answer that, Erin, because we didn't get to the sort of like, how do you combat apathy part of the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. In my background, I co-founded a nonprofit 11 years ago, so activating people, but especially our generation and this, I would call it a misconception, but about millennials is that they're lazy, they're apathetic. There's also just such an inundation of opportunities, of content, of stimuli. How do you choose why, in this political climate, would you choose to get involved? What we heard time and time again on the campaign trail was, I've never seen somebody in politics who looks like me, who talks like me, who remotely understands what it's like to be me. And now that I do, I'm in. I mean, we were getting so many people that weren't even 18. A 14-year-old boy from in my district went from the Golden Gate Bridge, from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border, from way north in the district, wrote me this message, and I do sit and read for hours.
That's great.
Messages. And early on in the campaign, I did it more. I learned the art of time management, but I did. And he said, I never thought that politics affected my life. And now I see that it does. When you hear from a 17-year-old in South Carolina who says, my dad said the politics wasn't for me, wasn't for women, wasn't for young people, I believed it. And then I saw your article, and I went into dinner, and I said, if she can do it, I can do it. What can I do? So we have to bridge those gaps. We have to show, which is why it's so important, why it's so historic, why I had chills last night when Hillary Clinton walked out there, and so much of my generation's going, oh, we shattered those glass ceilings. We don't feel the weight of that. We don't feel the impact of policy on our day-to-day lives, and most civilians don't. Most adults, I still consider myself a kid, right? But most people. So when you break down policy and you show it with the relevance to your daily life, maybe then you can sort of reel them in.
Erin, you should. Are we starting the super PAC, or what do we need to do here?
We came up 6.6 points short of advancing, and we started the campaign 70 days prior to the primary.
Wow.
So
well, get back up there, sister. Wow. We are out of time. We have another panelist coming up, another Q&A. I want to thank these wonderful people. I love Sally Cohn on -3 hours of sleep. Congressman Sally, Erin, thank you for your time and thoughts. We're going to pivot now. We have a Q&A with, hold on, let me get this introduction correctly. We have a very honorable guest, the Honorable Penny Pritzker, who is here in her personal capacity. We have hoodwinked her into having a short conversation with me. So she will come up to the stage, and it'll be riveting. Thank you so much, Penny. It's good to see you. So here's my question. You are one of the miraculously successful women in both the business world and the political world. Which arena is easier for women, and where is it easier for women to succeed, business or politics?
You know what's so interesting to me? There are many more senior women in politics and in government than there are in my business career. And that was made really obvious to me when I started in this job. You know, you go in, you'd show up, the number of cabinet secretaries, the number of senior women who are running our various departments. It's definitely different. I come out of the real estate industry. I belonged to the senior groups for women, or not women, but real estate leaders in our country, and maybe there were 5 of us in the room, and 100 men. It's just, it's still too hard in business, and it's been much easier and really delightful, actually, to have more women in leadership positions in government. And the thing that I'm struck by is how intentional it is. President Obama has been absolutely intentional about making sure that there's diversity throughout our government, and that is something that you are imbued with the minute you become involved, that you're expected, your teams are meant to be diverse, and that is both gender diversity and all different kinds of diversity. And what you realize is it takes a conscious effort, but the product is worth it because you get a much more well-rounded sort of set of points of view helping you make good policy decisions and helping you execute.
What are the sort of lessons you've learned from your time in governance as it pertains to sort of helping women and encouraging more participation in government on the part of women?
Well, I think that first of all, helping women understand how do you get from I'm not in government or never been in government to I'd like to participate, but maybe I don't have enough guts to run, or I can't put together a social media campaign like we just heard about, or that's just not for me. But you can still make a contribution and figuring out what are the paths of getting to know people. Because at the end of the day, it's not a lot different than in the private sector. It's a lot about your network. It's a lot about who you know. It's a lot about, frankly, people getting to know you and working on smaller projects that lead to bigger projects where people develop a sense of confidence in you. And the challenge in government is how do you actually get in that flow?
Right. Network.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I know you've been active in trying to close the pay gap. Pay equity is a big issue in America right now. It's something we're talking about on the campaign trail. Donald Trump believes that basically women will make the same as men if they do a good job. What is your response to that when you hear that line of argument?
Well, I think that's not factually accurate. Women are doing a good job today, and they're not getting paid the same. So
the intimation being, well, maybe they're not doing such a good job.
Well, that's crazy. I would argue, and let's start with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, and you heard the president say it last night, she is the best prepared person to be president of the United States, better than he said himself or even Bill Clinton. And I think to myself, how many of us know women in their various roles, and you say, well, they're head and shoulders above the folks around them, and they had to be just to get the job they've got, right? And so this is crazy. So one of the things that our administration is doing is now, if you're a business over 100 people, you have to actually disclose to the government pay and gender and different statistics so that it will be easier to demonstrate. First of all, it'll be easier for people running a business to know in their own business the pay inequity that they've got. But second, the government's going to be aware of it, and this is the possibility to kind of create, transparency is a very powerful tool, and it's not
a shaming tool often.
Exactly. And so, if you think about what went on in the Silicon Valley, where they took stock of the role of women in the leading Silicon Valley companies and how few of them there were, that's led to a real initiative in that community of we've got to change that. And one thing we know, if we use 100% of our talent, this country will be much better. But right now, we're not using 100% of our talent.
Well, there's the economic argument, surely, right? But there's also an emotional component to all of this, which is this notion, and we talked about it in the panel before a little bit, that prioritizing women or valuing women inherently devalues men. How do you get over that? Because that is a pronounced sentiment coursing through some part of our American political spectrum.
In my job, I've probably met with 2,100 CEOs at least. And over the last 3 years, all of them tell me they cannot find sufficient talent. It's one of the things that they feel is holding back their companies. And so my view is men, women, it doesn't matter. The question is it's about talent. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need. This idea that it's a competition, it may be a competition for one particular job or something like that, but it is not necessary. I don't believe women will crowd out men. I think it's all about talent, and I'd bet on women.
I was struck by a story that I heard from someone that I know in Philadelphia, and he was saying that his daughter was looking through a book of presidents, and they're all men. And she said, why can't women be presidents? Is it because they're not smart enough or not strong enough? And she's really little, right? This is not someone who's stuck on, watching a cable news feed or a social media feed. There's something that happens when girls are younger, perhaps. You have children. How cognizant are you of the lessons that we teach young girls versus young boys?
I'm extremely cognizant about it. My daughter just graduated from college, and she wrote her senior thesis on how women are depicted in American history books over the last 30 years, right? And you realize, first of all, the number of women depicted is declining. Second is that they're often depicted in relation to their husbands, not on their own merit. They're mostly depicted as the first woman that did something, as opposed to this is on her own merit what she accomplished. And then often it's not within the regular text, but it's in a little box or something like this. And so what you realize is in our history books, in our high school history books, how we're depicting women is giving an impression as much as anything is giving an impression. We talk about the impact of fashion magazines and other things on women's and young women's sense of themselves. Our basic school books are leaving an impression about the importance of women. We can't even decide, based on her work, you can't even decide who the most important women were. I mean, there's only 8 that are repeatedly mentioned.
Yeah.
In American history. That's got to be crazy, right?
And that reinforces this idea that we don't live up to,
that we're not able to do the job. I mean, and I will tell you, I see it. I see it in business when I work with women in business, or I see it in government. The women are incredibly capable, and in fact have a capacity to set aside. The president said something really important last night about compromise. He said, even when you know you are 100% right, you are still in a democracy going to have to compromise. And women know how to compromise. We are constantly juggling and compromising in our everyday life to figure out how we get it all done.
Sure.
We know how to do that. And so and you feel that when there's a greater presence of women in a room. And I'm not suggesting that the government has to be all women. I'm just saying that when you have enough presence of women, and I've seen it in corporate boards too. When you're the only woman, you're just trying to hang on. But when you're there, when there are enough women, then there's a confidence to challenge and push without being seen as you've got a sledgehammer and you're trying to break everything.
And I think that's true for any minority that's
Exactly.
in a boardroom and is a singular minority, whether it's a racial minority or a gender minority, sexual minority. Let me ask you one more question before we go to the audience. The language we use around Hillary Clinton's qualifications, I think sometimes, I wonder what you think of this, because we talk about how prepared she is, and we talk about how women are architects of compromise. And while that's all true and arguably good, do you worry sometimes that reinforces this narrative that women are about the team and not the individual? They study hard, but they're not mavericks. That we sort of send a subtle message that it's about preparation and it's about working within groups. It's not about being singular. And I know that's sort of we'll call it devil's advocate position, but is there not something embedded in that language that maybe does not push women to the very top?
I think we just were describing Hillary Clinton. I don't think we were describing women in general.
Well, but when we talk about women in the Senate, for example, they're very good at compromise, which is necessary in politics, of course.
That's supposed to be the job in the Senate.
Oh, really?
Sometimes that's not going on.
Right.
Right, and so that's a force for good, given that's the job. But just look at the panel that you had. You have, in the last two panels that you've had, you have plenty of mavericks sitting here who are charting new territory and who are succeeding, and don't bet against them. I wouldn't bet against them. In fact, it's like, how do you invest in those guys? Because they're creating new and they're pushing the boundaries, which I think is terrific. Look, women are as varied as men, and the characteristics that we choose to describe depends on the individual. Is not a characterization. It's not like all women are prepared. I know plenty of women who are not prepared, right? The point is, it's about what are your unique set of characteristics that allow you to be successful. That's the point I was trying to make.
Well taken. Let's go to the audience for a couple questions right here in the front row.
Thanks. Hi, John Michelson, Green Connections and Huffington Post. I'm glad you brought up that, what I'll call the invisibility syndrome, because one of the things that's come out in some of the coverage in particular of President Clinton's presentation, et cetera, is how much Hillary Clinton has done behind the scenes that nobody saw. And women do that, and they have this collaborative thing, but I'm a communicator for a living, and a lot of women don't communicate. They don't stand up, they don't say, send me, they don't say, I want to be on that panel, they don't say, I can do this, I want to be in the press. They don't, and in fact, when I go to interview women, they go, oh, I'm not ready, or oh, I'm not this, or
I'm not prepared.
I'm not that. And it's like, get over it.
But I think the more of us who get over it and do it. Look, I'm new to this whole getting out there and talking over the last couple of years, and there's a learning curve. There's no doubt about it. You can't all of a sudden just show up and do this. But having said that, unless of course you're, maybe younger and bolder than I am. But what I would say is, the point is, the more people who do it, the more we see women doing this, the more I think that people will get over it. I think the other thing is that we should not underestimate is the impact of social media. Everyone has a voice now and a way to have a voice, and I think they're somewhat generational in that respect. Media training used to be you had to be trained. Now all you need is an iPhone or an Android, and that's it, you're on, right? That's different, and I think that will also be part of getting over the hump. And YouTube, think about your YouTube.
I think sisterhood also helps, if you have other ladies who've done it. I think it's sort of incumbent upon other women to push other women into the spotlight.
Absolutely.
One more over here.
Hi, my name is Samantha Wasserman. I'm 15. I'm from Southern California. And I'm here with this organization called Junior States of America. But this past year, I ran for senator of our region. And I ended up winning, and I was the only freshman that ran.
Maverick.
Yes.
Thank you. But I was talking, there's an all-boys school that's part of the organization I'm in, so they were voting, obviously. And I was talking to one of them, and about the election. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I know a lot of guys that like voted for you because they thought you were hot. And I was kind of like at first I was like, oh, okay, that's sick. Like, I'll take that. Like, it's just, like awesome. But then I was like, okay, no, I want you to vote for me because I'm like intelligent, or you think I'm articulate, or you think I'm a badass. Like, I don't want you to vote for me just because you think I'm attractive. And I feel like that even happened today, like walking through security, like some woman made a comment about how like my dress was short. And I was like, I'm so sick of it. And it's like, I'm 15, like, yeah, I'm gonna wear a short dress, you know? Like,
you wear that short dress, girl.
But like, I still want to be viewed as like an intelligent human being, and not just like a 15-year-old girl who's wearing a short dress.
What is your name, wonderful 15-year-old girl?
Samantha Wasserman.
All right, Samantha.
But it's like, how do you deal with that? Like, especially because I want to go into national politics, but I'm also kind of afraid of being like objectified 24/7.
You know what? I think this is about your attitude and how you react, and just know that that's out there, as opposed to that's not standing in your way, right? So part of this is just, okay, that's out there. I can cope with that, and I can deal with it. It's not going to inhibit me. That's what I would encourage you. Don't think twice. Move forward. Go for it.
All right, with that, we are out of time. Penny Pritzker, the Honorable Penny Pritzker, it's
Thank
great
you.
to see you. Thanks for your
Thanks
time,
for
and
having
thank
me.
you for your time. Happy DNC.
Thank you, Penny Pritzker. Thank you, Alex. Thank you to Running Start, She Should Run, and Alling Together for making this conversation possible. You know, we've been at the conventions both in Cleveland and in Philadelphia across 2 weeks, having both serious and animated conversations about some of the most pressing election issues and issues in our world. It's been wonderful. Having you all here is marvelous. This is the biggest crowd we've had yet. It's a wonderful way to end. Thank you to you, to the Fieldhouse for accommodating us so beautifully. We'll see you all in 2020.